auspicious occasion of the celebration of Krishna's lifting Govardhana hill and protecting all the residents of Vrindaban. So we'll be speaking on the 10th canto, chapters, covering points from chapters 24 and 25, which deal with that pastime. And since this leadership course is going on, I've tried to draw leadership principles from this Leela, and altogether I'll try, time permitting, I'll try to speak on 6 principles, and pay attention, maybe I'll give you a quiz on them at the end. So we'll get to the verse in a minute, but let's just start with the pastime. So, as you all know, everyone knows this pastime very well. It begins with Nanda Maharaj and the residents of Vrindavan about to perform a sacrifice for the pleasure of Lord Indra, because they're a Vaishya community, they need rain. Indra's the god of rain, and therefore they're doing this yajna, which seems to be an annual tradition in the community, and they feel like their livelihood depends on the execution of this yajna. So then Krishna comes along and starts asking some pertinent questions. So he asks things like, "Father, what are you doing? Is this according to Vedic injunction? Or is it just a popular ceremony? Is it some kind of tradition? Or is there a real purpose to this? What are you trying to accomplish? And how is it that the purpose that you wish to achieve will be achieved?" And then he speaks this verse. So then I thought that because time is short, that we could just, let me get there. We can just say the Sanskrit all together one time, if that's all right with you. I was going to throw me off the seat here for doing that. Okay, so let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Gyatva chakarmani jano yam anutishtati vidusha karma siddhi syat yata na vidusho bhavat. So what Krishna says is, when people in this world perform activities, sometimes they understand what they're doing, and sometimes they don't. Those who know what they're doing achieve success in their work, whereas ignorant people do not. So I'll read the purport here. This is by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lord here informs his father that people should perform a particular ceremony or activity only after thoroughly understanding it through discussion with friends. We should not be blind followers of tradition. If a person doesn't even know what he's doing, how can he be successful in his work? This essentially is the Lord's argument in this verse. Since Sri Krishna, as the young child of Nanda, would naturally be expected to show enthusiasm for his father's religious activities, it was the father's duty to give the son a thorough explanation of the ceremony. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militandena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachardane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Shatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we have our first leadership principle, that we should not be blind followers of tradition. And to illustrate this point, Srila Prabhupada tells a story. Maybe you know the story of the cat in the basket. Does anyone know this story? Maybe not so many of you. So there was a wedding. There was this wealthy Indian family, and their daughter was getting married, so they made all these elaborate arrangements, for the Vivaha Yajna to take place. And just at the last minute, when they were about to begin the ceremony, this cat wanders into the area, just right where the yajna is about to be performed. And in India, I mean everywhere basically, but especially in India, cats are just kind of like scroungy, moochy animals that slink around at night eating mice and insects, and they're not auspicious. They're considered inauspicious. So the mother, freaked out that this cat was there. What are we going to do? Oh no, this is going to spoil everything. This is going to contaminate everything. No one can see this, otherwise our daughter will be, cast into shame. And so she just got a basket, one of these big baskets that had flowers or something. She dumped whatever it was out of it and put it over the cat. No one's going to see it. No one's going to think about it. It's not there. So then everything went on, and the wedding was performed. They were happily married, and so time passed, and they had a child. They had a daughter. This daughter grew up, and it was time for her wedding. So the mother was preparing all the arrangements for the wedding of her daughter. Her mother had passed away already, so she wasn't there. And all the arrangements were made, and then she got there and she said, something is missing. What is it? And then she remembered, yes, it's the cat. There has to be a cat, because after her wedding, while she was getting married, the whole time she was like looking at the basket, thinking, "What is that basket?" And then as soon as the thing was over, she went and saw that there was a cat there. So she knew what it was. It was a cat in a basket. So then she said, "The cat. We need a cat, and we need a basket over it, and it has to be right here in the middle." And then who knows how many generations that went on for, until someone said, "What is this? Why are we doing it? What is the purpose? Is it fulfilling that purpose? And if not, what the heck is it doing there?" So as leaders, we need to question sometimes what we're doing. There are many traditions that, ISKCON is a young movement, but only been around 50 years, but still there are some traditions that we have, and we need to, from time to time, reflect on what is the purpose of this tradition? What is it meant to achieve? Is it achieving that purpose? Is that still a purpose? Is that a purpose that we still want to achieve? And if it's not a purpose we want to achieve, or if it is a purpose that we want to achieve, but it's not fulfilling the purpose anymore, then why are we doing it? So Krishna sets this example because we have a mission here. We actually want things to happen, and we need to strategically plan in practical ways to make those things happen. And it's like Albert Einstein says that the definition of insanity is that you go on doing the same thing thinking that you'll get a different result. So if we're not getting the results that we want, we might need to question what we're doing and try a new thing. So that's one leadership principle that Krishna is teaching here, that he obviously wants us to do because he's doing it himself. He's setting the example. And quite frankly, he needs us to do it at this time. He needs us to really question what we're doing and possibly think of some alternatives. And Krishna does think of an alternative. So his alternative to Indra Puja is, let's go worship Govardhana Hill. So then he tells everybody exactly what to do. We need this, we need that, we need the other thing. Take all the preparations that you've already made, add all these preparations to it. Let's just mobilize everyone and go to Govardhana Hill. So then there was a big procession. All the Brajavasis were going. And that procession is described here. And this is going to lead us to the next principle. So I'll just read this. This is texts 32 to 34. The cowherd community then did all that Madhusudana had suggested. They arranged for the Brahmins to recite the auspicious Vedic mantras. And using the paraphernalia that had been intended for Indra's sacrifice, they presented offerings to Govardhana Hill and the Brahmins with reverential respect. They also gave grass to the cows. Then, placing the cows, bulls, and calves in front of them, they circumambulated Govardhan. As the beautifully ornamented cowherd ladies followed along, riding on wagons drawn by oxen, they sang the glories of Lord Krishna, and their songs mingled with the Brahmins' chanting of benedictions. So from this we can see that special arrangements were made for valuable members of society. And throughout the Shastras, we see that there's 5 groups that are very valuable to human society and which need to be protected. And here 3 are mentioned, the Brahmins, the cows, and the women. And Prabhupada in the Krishna book emphasizes this point that everyone is important and everyone needs to be taken care of, even the animals. And I thought it was particularly relevant that the women here were riding on wagons drawn by oxen. And the cows went in front, and right after them came the women. So it wasn't that the women were pushed to the back. It wasn't that they were just kind of, it wasn't that they were, made to just walk along and struggle that long journey. But actually Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan, under his instruction, made special arrangements to facilitate the women to take part in the ceremony in an honorable way. And this is something that we have to see if we're actually doing. I mean, it's clearly, it hasn't been done in past decades. It's something that people are starting to think, oh, maybe we need to kind of do that. But Krishna sets the example that he actually facilitates the women's participation in the ceremony. And my experience in ISKCON, from what I've seen and from what I've been through, is that women have not been facilitated. To facilitate it comes from the word facile, which means easy, to make easy. It hasn't been easy for women in ISKCON. Rather than being facilitated, women have actually been debilitated. We've made it more difficult for women to do just basic services in ISKCON. And so Krishna doesn't support that. And sometimes devotees talk about spiritual culture, Vedic culture, the position of women in spiritual culture. But how much more spiritual or Vedic do you get than the inhabitants of Vrindavan following the direct instruction of Krishna? I'd say that's pretty spiritual. So it's something that we need to try to do. And not just to give women a space in the temple or give them opportunities, but actually to facilitate them, to actually make special arrangements. Because the nature of women is to be a little shy. They're not aggressive like men, that they'll push themselves forward to the front, or to push themselves to fight to have positions where they can sit on the Vyasasana or be a leader. Or it's not really their inclination. They're quite happy to just let someone else do it usually, right, ladies? So actually leaders need to identify capable women and encourage them, and even if you have to give them a little pep talk to get them to do things which they're clearly capable of doing, to make those arrangements, to empower women. And that's what Krishna did, that he gave them opportunity to sing the glories, to right there along with the Brahmins, so that their singing intermingled with the Brahmins' chanting of benedictions. So they're all right there together, and everyone had a great opportunity to glorify the Lord together. So that's something that we as a society need to work on, not just for the benefit of the women, not just to have a good public image, but actually for the benefit of a society as a whole. Because Prabhupada said that ISKCON is his body. And so if we're debilitating half of the body, we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot and then wondering why we're not progressing quickly, and wondering why other people perceive us as lame. What can you expect? Or if you look at it as a bus, like ISKCON is a bus, and we're on this journey. Our bus is taking people back to Godhead. And we, slash the tires on the side of one side of the bus. And we wonder why the bus is going slowly. We wonder why people are getting off. We wonder why people are not getting on. So we want people to be encouraged to stay on this bus, to get on the bus, to go back to Godhead, and that this is the vehicle which is taking you there. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And for that, we need to use all of our resources. Kontebu was talking about how strategic planning means recognizing that we have limited resources, but using those resources to the maximum capacity to achieve the desired result. So we have to make use of the available resources, and half of those resources happen to be women. And they actually have a lot to offer if they're just given the opportunity. So that's the second leadership principle. Okay. Then, so the festival was going on, all the arrangements were made, everyone was there at Govardhana Hill, they're doing the offerings, they're doing the yagya, they're doing kirtan, they're chanting benediction, And everybody's happy except one person, Lord Indra. So this is kind of not so much a principle, but just something that leaders should be aware of, that we may try our best to please Krishna, but it may not be possible to please everyone. You can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but it's hard to please all of the people all the time. So we just have to accept that, okay, if one or two people are unhappy, what can we do? We just have to try our best. But the principle that I want to draw from this is more in relation to Indra as a leader, because he's also a leader here. He's the king of heaven. He's a very powerful leader. And it's described here. I'll just read a little bit here. Shukadeva Goswami said, when Indra understood that his sacrifice had been put aside, he became furious with Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who were accepting Krishna as their lord. Angry Indra sent forth the clouds of universal destruction known as Samvartika. Imagining himself the supreme controller, he spoke as follows. Indra said, just see how these cowherd men living in the forest have become so greatly intoxicated by their prosperity. They have surrendered to an ordinary human being, Krishna, and thus have offended the gods. Their taking shelter of Krishna is just like the foolish attempt of men who abandon transcendental knowledge of the self and instead to try to cross over the great ocean of material existence in the false boats of fruitive ritualistic sacrifices. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Anyways, these cowherd men have acted inimically towards me by taking shelter of this ordinary human being, Krishna, who thinks himself very wise, but who is simply a foolish, arrogant, over-talkative child. So, we can see here why Indra is getting angry. He's getting angry because he feels that people are acting inimically towards him. It's all about him. I'm the leader. Wait a minute, they worship me every year. Why are they not worshiping me now? So this is something we need to be careful of as leaders, that we will be respected, we will be honored in various ways, but we shouldn't expect that. Like Lord Chaitanya says, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari, that we should offer all respect to others, but not expect it in return. Because expecting respect actually puts us in a dangerous position. One, because we're not always going to get respect. So it puts our position, our stability as a leader in the hands of other people. That I can only lead if people respect me, and therefore you have to respect me, otherwise I can't function. Otherwise I'm going to get angry and throw a tantrum, like Indra did. So we shouldn't become attached to respect. Another reason why we shouldn't become attached to respect is because if we're attached to respect if we're attached to respect and we get respect, we won't be grateful. Because we'll just be like, of course they should respect me, right? I mean, it's their duty to respect me as a leader. Now they finally recognized my superiority, you know? Finally, what was wrong with you people, you know? But if we're not attached to respect, if we're not expecting respect, and then somebody actually respects us, then we'll feel grateful. We'll feel like, oh, this is, you know, and we'll feel favorably inclined towards that person. And if people don't respect us, then we won't get angry. We'll just be fine with it. We'll just be able to carry on our service without any, you know, hurt feelings or, you know, ego problems. We'll just be able to do what we have to do in any circumstance. So Krishna, that's another principle. I mean, Krishna gives this point in the Bhagavad Gita that whether being honored or dishonored, we just have to be equipoised. So the best thing is to offer all respect to others, not expect respect. If people respect us, great. If they don't respect us, no problem. I'm just a servant here, and I'm just going to do my service no matter what people think of me. So that's an important principle. And this is actually, this thing of being attached to respect is one of the causes for what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes in the Madhurya Kadambini as Taranga Rangini, which is one of the causes of unsteadiness in bhajana kriya. It causes unsteadiness to become attached to the byproducts of devotional service, one of which is getting respect, or dana, pratishta, and puja, receiving donations, receiving pratishta, position, receiving puja, worship, or honor. So these things may come in the course of our devotional service. It will naturally come as we advance in Krishna consciousness. Just by being in ISKCON for a period of time, you will get dana, you will get pratishta, you will get puja, you'll get all these things. But if we respect them, then it can be a cause of unsteadiness. It could actually lead to our fall down. Mm-hmm. So that's something to be careful of. Okay. So, Indra was very furious, and in his anger, he called upon all of his resources. Primarily the Samvartika clouds. Indra was the king of heaven. He had a lot of power, he had a lot of resources, and he used everything to hammer Vrindavan. He's throwing down rain and hail, thunder, lightning, wind, cold, everything that he had to use against Krishna and his devotees, he used. But the funny thing is that Indra is actually a devotee. He's a demigod, he's not a demon. So what we have to consider here is that as leaders, don't think that this won't happen to you. Or don't think that you won't be tempted at some point to use the power at your disposal to actually do harm to devotees who appear to be inimical to you. And it has happened in the past. That a leader, somebody seems to be criticizing him, okay, he's going to see who's in charge here. Right? Everybody's nodding. So this is something that happens, it has happened, and we can't let it happen to us. So we have to use all of our resources in Krishna's service, and always understand that as leaders, we're actually the servants of those who are in our care. And we should use all of Krishna's resources to serve the devotees and to make more devotees, not to promote ourselves, not to protect our egos, and like that. So this is something that we need to look, because Maya tends to target the leaders. I remember when I first became a Sankirtan leader as a young devotee, my authority said, now you have to be very careful because Maya is going to target you. Because if she can knock down the leaders, then everyone under you will be disturbed, will be weakened, will be, we've seen that when big leaders leave, so many of the followers leave with them. And that's like a big victory for Maya. So she's not so bothered with people, just like she's not bothered with people who are in complete Maya, who are non-devotees. They're just already, converts. But when we take to devotional service, Prabhupada says, then we declare war against Maya, and that's when she starts to fight with us. So, and then if you're in a battle, then the people that you want to target is the generals, the leaders. You want to, get the fortresses, the places where the power is. And so Maya strikes out most at people who have power. And so we have to be very careful as leaders, to have strict sadhana, to maintain good consciousness, humility, and this keep continuously reminding us that I am not the master, I am the servant. That's our whole philosophy. Krishna is the only master. Everyone else is a servant. Okay. So when this is going on, then the Brajvasis were actually suffering in the beginning. It's described here that as the clouds released torrents of rain, as thick as massive columns, the earth was submerged in the flood. The high ground could no longer be distinguished from the low. The cows and other animals shivering from the excessive rain and wind, and the cowherd men and ladies pained by the cold, all approached Lord Govinda for shelter. Trembling from the distress brought about by severe rainfall and trying to cover their heads and calves with their own bodies, the cows approached the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The cowherd men and women addressed the Lord. Krishna, O most fortunate one, please deliver the cows from the wrath of Indra. O Lord, you are so affectionate to your devotees. Please save us also. So I thought this was very interesting because the reason that the Brajvasis were suffering was because they had listened to Krishna. They had followed Krishna's advice, and the result was, now we're in trouble. So if someone gives you advice and you follow that advice faithfully, and you find yourself as a direct result of following that person's advice, that you are now in a life or death situation, are you going to go back to them and be like, what should I do now? Please, or are you going to look to someone else for help? I trusted you, and now I'm in a mess. I'm not trusting you anymore. But did the Brajvasis do that? No, they went straight back to Krishna. So this is a principle of leadership, that no matter what happens, Krishna is our only shelter. That we have to, in any circumstances, just turn to Krishna. And it may be that when we follow the orders of Krishna, when we abide by the principles of the Shastras, it may be that apparently bad things happen sometimes. But that shouldn't lead us to reject the authority of the Shastras. That shouldn't lead us to abandon Krishna's shelter and look for solutions elsewhere. That we should always remember that the only thing that we have to do is to turn to Krishna. And when we turn to Krishna, Krishna turns to us. And we see that that's what Krishna did. That when the residents of Vrindaban took shelter of Krishna, then Krishna immediately assessed the situation, saw the solution, walked over to Govardhana Hill, and just picked it up as easily as a child picks up a mushroom and held it there. Come on, here's the solution to your problems. And the Brajvasis completely trusted him. They didn't think, oh no, we trusted you before. They went under the hill and they stayed there for 7 days and 7 nights. And what just a few minutes ago looked like a life or death situation, which was, everyone is in distress, we're all going to die, we're all suffering, the cows and everybody in the village, everything's being wiped out. All of a sudden now, it's all transformed into this amazing, unprecedented, blissful situation where all the residents of Vrindavan are in one place with Krishna. And for 7 days and 7 nights, everybody can just bask in the presence of Krishna and exchange heartfelt, loving exchanges in the form of loving glances and adoration and smiles and affectionate looks with Krishna continuously, without interruption, without eating, without sleeping, without drinking, without feeling the urge to do anything else, without being able to do anything else. You're just wonderfully stuck there with Krishna. So this is a result of taking shelter of Krishna, that Krishna comes closer to us and he creates situations where we can actually experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness. So then, but then as Krishna was looking over everyone, then he looked over the gopis and he saw Srimati Radharani there. Mm-hmm. And then it's described that at that time, he started to tremble due to intense love and ecstasy. And his hand was shaking. And because his hand was shaking, the hill was shaking. But did anyone think, oh no, we're getting out of here, this hill is going to fall? They stayed right there. So this is another thing that we should remember. It's kind of a sub-point to this principle of taking shelter of Krishna. That when we start something, in the initial phases of starting a new project or, becoming, taking a position as temple president of a project that was maybe failing and now I've got to do it, things may look shaky in the beginning. It may look like the hill is going to fall. It may look like everything's going to fall apart. But if we just have faith in Krishna and keep serving with determination, that things will eventually stabilize by Krishna's grace, and Krishna will reciprocate with our efforts to serve him and help us and make everything strong and stable in the end. Okay. Skip that. I feel like I skipped something. Okay, so then, all right. So the residents of Vrindavan are under the hill, and Indra is doing his best, right? He's using all of his power, he's using all of his energies, his Samvartika clouds to try to strike fear in the hearts of the Brajavasis so that they'll forget about Krishna and go back to worshipping him. But even though he's trying his best, was anybody disturbed? After taking shelter of the Govardhana hill, was anybody disturbed by Indra's onslaught of rain? Not at all. It's described that not even a single leaf on a tree on Govardhana hill was moved. So this is something that we can keep in mind also and why? Okay, why wasn't a single leaf on a single tree on the hill of Govardhan moved by Indra's thunderstorm?
Because Krishna's in control, he protects the Dham.
Yeah, I heard this. I heard a class by Radhanath Swami. He says, because it was connected to Krishna's little finger. So Krishna's fingers touching the hill, those trees are growing on the hill, because it's all connected to Krishna, then nothing could harm it. So that's something that we can remember, that as long as we stay connected to Krishna, that no matter what happens, no matter who tries to attack us and bring us down, nothing can disturb us. But on the other hand, because Indra, even though he was so powerful, much more powerful than a leaf on a tree on Govardhana hill, but because he had disconnected himself from Krishna by his antagonistic attitude, then although he was in a more powerful position than the residents of Vrindavan, at least by material estimation, he failed. So by remaining connected to Krishna, we are going to be successful and safe in all circumstances. And if we separate ourselves from Krishna and use our Krishna's resources in a way that's not connected with Krishna, then we will fail, as Indra did. Of course, Indra didn't fully fail, because Krishna is so kind that anybody who is somehow engaged with him is going to benefit. So, and actually this whole pastime was enacted for at least one reason, was to purify Indra of his false pride. So anybody who in any way whatsoever is connected with Krishna and is going to be purified. So that's a reassuring thought, even if we get off track. And that brings us to the next point. So Indra finally realized that he was just a complete failure. He wasn't getting anywhere, no matter how hard he tried. And then he just kind of accepted his defeat. And he thought, oh no, this person that I just accused of being an arrogant and over-talkative child is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, my Lord, and I've just committed a terrible offense by trying to kill him, and what to speak of him, all of his beloved devotees, especially the cows which are so dear to him, and to wipe out the whole village with his transcendental spiritual Dham on this planet. And oh no, I've really done a bad thing. So then he realizes that he has to take the humble position now and ask for forgiveness. But he also realizes that, he's feeling so ashamed that he can't approach Krishna directly. So what does he do?
He goes to the devotee.
He gets a devotee. He approaches Sarabi, because he's thinking, Krishna's in this mood right now. Krishna's in this mood in the Govardhana Leela of protecting the cows, of worshipping the cows, glorifying the cows. The cows are all in the front. So since he's in this mood of, love for the cows, then I'm going to get one of his beloved cows, his most beloved cow, to go and appeal on my behalf for forgiveness. So this is also a principle that we should not only take shelter of Krishna, but take shelter of the devotees. Because the devotees can really save us, even when we commit the most abominable activity. That the devotees are often more kind than Krishna, and when we take shelter of the devotees, then they can really help us to get back on track, even if we have messed up. And then another leadership principle that we exhibit from the side of Krishna and from the side of Sarabi is to be forgiving. Because it's not that Sarabi was not aware of what Indra had just done. She was fully aware that he had just done something really terrible. But she didn't say, "How dare you, after trying to kill all of the cows, now you're going to ask me to go and help you? Why should I help you? Get out of here and go suffer, go to hell. For all I care after what you've done." But she didn't say that. She said, "Okay, I can see that you have a nice attitude. I appreciate your humility, and I'll help you. Let's go. We'll go to Krishna. And don't worry, Krishna will forgive you." And Krishna did forgive him. So as leaders, it may be that somebody under our care does do something horrible, does commit offenses, breaks a principle, does something abominable. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Api chat sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak. Sadhu eva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa." That even if a person commits the most abominable activity, but they should still be considered saintly as long as they're correctly situated in their determination. So Indra, he committed something abominable, but he came to his senses quite quickly by the grace of Krishna, and he regained his determination to serve, to be the humble servant of the Lord. And so we may need to help devotees who commit some abominable activity or become offensive to come to this realization. Krishna will certainly help them in due course, and when they do come back with the proper attitude, then we shouldn't send them away, but we should be open-hearted and willing to forgive, as Krishna did, as Sarabi did, and as so many devotees in the past have done, and as people have done for us, right? Because we've also committed so many mistakes. We committed so many offenses, and we're still here because somebody stood up for us. Somebody helped us. Somebody forgave us. So these are some of the principles that I wanted to bring out. And Krishna accomplishes so much in this pastime. He corrected Indra's mentality, and he helped him to advance in Krishna consciousness. He gave the highest bliss to the Brajavasis by bringing them all together. He demonstrated that although he appears as a small child, he's actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indra was having some doubts, but he proved it. And so now we can use this as proof. Like Prabhupada says, if anybody considers that Krishna is just an ordinary human being, wait a minute, he lifted Govardhana Hill. That's one of our main arguments. And Krishna says, "Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They disregard my activities, but I lifted Govardhana Hill. Who can do that?" He also teaches that there's no need to worship the demigods separately from him. That he's the root of the tree, and just by worshiping Krishna, everybody's satisfied. All the demigods are more satisfied than they would be if they were worshipped separately. And he also gave us all of these practical leadership principles so that we can guide his society in his service. So let me just see if you remembered what the leadership principles were. Vaishnavi has a question. Okay, we'll just do this quickly. All right, so before we get to the questions. First of all, first leadership principle. When Krishna was asking Nanda Maharaj, what was he doing? What was the principle there?
Questioning tradition.
Questioning tradition. Don't be a blind follower of tradition. Be open to innovation if necessary. Okay. When they were going in procession towards Govardhana Hill, what was the principle? Protection of everyone. and particularly arranging facilitation for women. Okay. When Indra became angry that they stopped his sacrifice, what was the principle? Don't expect respect. Otherwise you might get angry and offend someone. When they were all in distress after following Krishna's advice.
Don't use power.
Resources.
Take shelter of Krishna. Take shelter of Krishna, yeah. When all of Indra's thunderstorms couldn't budge a leaf. What's that? Stay connected to Krishna, yeah. And when Surabhi agreed to help Indra approach the Lord, be forgiving. And take shelter of devotees. Take shelter of devotees, and as devotees we should forgive. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm happy that everybody listened well. So Shruti Sagar, we have a question.
So you were saying that if somebody criticizes us, personally we should be merciful and so forth. But I was wondering, in a context of a community, when we see somebody who's inimical, maybe towards us personally and maybe some others, and how can we act so that it doesn't look like we're taking it personally, but at the same time we have a duty to protect the community from such a person. So how do you suggest we act in a balanced manner, but still not take it personally, even though the person's attacked?
Yeah. I would say the best thing is to get somebody else to speak to that person. Rather than saying, you can't talk to me like that. I'm the temple president. You should talk to somebody else who's even, a junior, and ask that person to go to the inimical person and just kind of sing your glories. To say, actually this person is doing a good job, and, and express appreciation for the service that you're doing and the way you're doing it, and convince the person that actually they should respect you. And yeah.
It's such a terrible position for the leader, because it's like I don't want to have to speak for myself or figure out how to get someone else to speak for myself, but at the same time it's.
But another thing is that you probably won't have to, because if you are a good leader, which I believe you are, then somebody will speak up. You don't have to ask the person to speak up. It's like when I was teaching a school in Vrindaban. I was teaching high school girls. So there were a couple of girls in my class that would, when I was not around, they would say things about me like, oh, Prabhupada Priya Mataji's like this or like that. And then when some other girls got to know, like the majority of the girls actually liked me, they thought I was a good teacher. So they would actually go to the girl, and I didn't say anything, but they would go to those girls and be like, how dare you speak like that about Prabhupada Priya Mataji, she does this and she does that and she's like this and she's always there for us and she's the best teacher I ever had. And and they would come back, and then they came back to me one day and they said, Mataji, I don't know if you know, but they're saying these things about you, and we totally put them in their place. We stood up for you, and we will again and again. So we just want you to know that we are, So, yeah. I'm sure there are many people in the community that will stand up. If someone comes and says, Shruti's like this, he's, blah, 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 somebody will say, what are you saying? He's actually, so nice in so many ways. So don't worry.
I'm laughing generally. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Yes.
There are other ways to deal with that also, at least from my personal experience. If somebody has a problem with the leader, criticize the leader, then one aspect of servant leadership is to approach the person directly, get them in an informal atmosphere, and talk about it. Understand their side of the story, why they're thinking the way they are. And you might be surprised that they may have something to figure it out, to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And like that, if you have a one-on-one discussion in an informal atmosphere, I find that to be very, very helpful. Maybe over prashadam at your home or something like that. And you talk about it, and every experiment that person done with that came out successful, where that devotee understand you understand the devotee, and the whole relationship changes drastically. I just want to share that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, because the person, I mean, they may have a valid point, which you could take on board, which we could take on board as constructive criticism, and we could actually use that to improve, because we're also not perfect. And the other thing is that person may have a misunderstanding, which we could clarify through discussion, right? Yeah, thank you very much. Something else?
Thank you so much. I just had a comment. Thank you so much, Prabhupada Priya, for not only such eloquence, but drawing such wonderful principles in this pastime that we all know and have heard, and now we see it in a different light. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
This time. Really shows your deep realizations. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, Anasuya.
I want to thank you. Very, very insightful. Thank you. There was a comment that I wanted to share that triggered me when you talked about blind tradition.
About blind tradition.
Yeah. One story that I think that hit me was when my children had other friends. You know, there's this. I think it's common among Indians. You know, where they have this blind tradition. You know, don't cut your nails on Thursday, don't wash your hair on Tuesday, don't do this on Saturday.
Yeah.
But my children had friends who were Indians, you know, and they were telling my children that. And the first question that my kids, which I was just walking by and I overheard them, that was pretty powerful. One of my daughter told this kid, did Prabhupada say that? and they're like, yeah, Prabhupada never said that. So it's blind tradition.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very nice, insightful lesson for me to realize that even the younger kids are also aware that if Prabhupada didn't say that it was not a tradition, then it's a blind tradition.
Yeah.
Or trying to go calm. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Nice story. Thank you. That's Bruce.
Lovely class. I just had a question about blind tradition as well. We just had Diwali yesterday, and it's like I come from an Indian family, and they're like, oh, you have to wear new clothes, and you know they burn firecrackers. But you know, I don't see like you were talking about how we should be conscious of the animals, and you see in India where they burn a lot of firecrackers, and all the birds get scared, and the air is really polluted. And if you're buying more clothes than we need, then we're hoarding. So is that really, I never really followed those traditions when they moved to North America, so I kind of rejected them in one sense, and you know, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavatam, so you know, why should we, you know, is that part of blind tradition as well?
Well, I don't hear, I never read any description in the Bhagavatam of firecrackers in Krishna Leela, so where that comes from, I don't know. Probably, yeah. And I mean, obviously Prabhupada didn't establish it in ISKCON as part of our Diwali celebrations or Govardhana Puja celebrations. Although some temples do it, but yeah. We have, like you said, we always have to see, you know, is it favorable? Because the ultimate principle is we have to accept what's favorable for our Krishna consciousness and what's favorable for spreading Krishna consciousness. And so if we're doing something that's disturbing, you know, the health and well-being of other living entities, it's probably not very favorable.
Thank you.
I love the point of the distress that was caused by following Krishna's instructions and the principle of continuing to take shelter. It's not a doubt, but a consideration came up, so I'd like your insight on it. In Vrindaban, where the Brajvasis are all pure devotees, then it's natural for them to take shelter. If you're a leader in a community, though, you may be doing something and you know that it's what Krishna wants done, and in the immediate it seems like it's creating distress. And that, especially when you're dealing with conditioned souls who are approaching spiritual life because they want relief from material distress, and now it's creating more material distress, so it's apparently not the right thing to do. So how do you inculcate that faith in those that are coming from that more mixed motivated place, or even in precept, they don't yet understand that we should be doing it for Krishna's pleasure, and right now his pleasures are purification. How do you develop that mood and keep that faith, especially when the stress comes?
Well, it's the suffering that we undergo as a part of following Krishna's instructions is kind of in the category of tapo divyam yena puchika sattvam shudyad yasmad brahma sokyam tunantam. That we do these things, we do tapo divyam, divine austerities, but by doing them, it leads to brahma sokyam tvanantam, and which means spiritual happiness that continues forever. So a little bit of poison in the beginning may be there, but we have to reassure people that there will be nectar in the end. And we also have to be models of that nectar, you know? Actually, young devotees get a lot of faith from seeing older devotees who are happy in Krishna consciousness. One very new devotee came up to me one time at Krishna House, a young girl, and she told me, you know, you're such an inspiration to me. And I said, why? And she said, because you're so happy. You're so enthusiastic. Even though you've been around for so many years and you're older devotee, but you're still so happy. You're like so young at heart. And when I see you, I get faith that the process of Krishna consciousness works. Because we're supposed to follow by this process, we're supposed to be happy. And so when young devotees see older devotees, moping around and melancholy and lamenting, complaining all the time, it's like they think, oh, is that what I'm going to be like after, 40 years of practicing Krishna consciousness? So we really have to model, we have to, I'm sure devotees have a lot of, inside that maybe they don't show, they have a lot of deep happiness from connection, but we have to show that, to show devotees, young devotees, that we're happy and show our enthusiasm. Not in a fake way, but just be real, and show them that these austerities are just, it's just temporary. It's actually very quick. These early stages of devotional service, like all this anartana vritti, it can go very quick. And then after that, you've got eternity. You got an eternity of bhava and prema. You just have to get through this little bhajana kriya and artana vritti and nishta. Oh, as soon as you get to nishta, it's like, okay, now things are moving, and then emotions, and then love, and then bliss, and ecstasy. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for this wonderful lecture. To me, it has been a great inspiration, your explanation of how Krishna protects devotees and how they faithfully follow him, even if he trembles, thinking of Radharani, and the whole Golden Hill starts shaking, but that even not a single leaf on the Golden Hill is being harmed because it is connected with Krishna. Now that last week alone, 5 cities around the world have been completely flooded, and I'm talking about cars being washed down the streets, that in the Missouri and Mississippi Valley, this year, 4 months, 12 million square acres have not been able to be planted because of flooding. I'm thinking of this Indra flooding us. And, this is going to get a lot worse in the next coming years. And I hope that I will remember your lecture today and seek shelter with the richer buses under this Govardhana hill that Krishna is going to lift up for us, where no leaf will be harmed being connected with Krishna.
Haribol! Yeah. Okay, I think we better stop here. It's late.